Hi there, welcome to more breaking news in the Noah Presgrove case, sharing with you in a summary format of never seen before text by Kaden Pressy on Facebook Messenger, including claims of being armed with a firearm for protection, acknowledging that he may have been there on Friday, depending on how you interpret the wording, references to Caleb as well, some contradictions along the way, shocking points in general. Be sure to stick around today. You don't want to miss out anything. We are finally wrapping it up today in terms of this little series, what I have been doing over time. If you are interested in the previous videos, because they're just as important as they all are, you'll be able to find and follow where the I symbol is up there. Click on that. You'll have the drop-down menu box with the full playlist of the Noah Presgrove case and some loose videos attached in recent time. Today, we're locking on in. I'm doing a summary analysis out of respect for the privacy of other people out there, and eventually, with time, the actual physical screenshots hopefully can be shown visually. We can also do a recap as well. But just as a disclaimer, what I'm reading to you, I have notes and I've just basically written down what I've seen with my own eyes from the messages of Caden and responses by other people, okay? If you don't want to believe it, that's okay, but I'm sharing with you what I have seen myself directly from the horse's mouth, amongst other things too. And in today's video, it incorporates the early stages before, I guess, the podcast of stuff took place, which is very important because it was June, July when Kaden Pressy got involved with Parts in True Crime, got involved with that police private interview. The dates of today, or in today's video, the dates what we're looking back at retrospectively is May 24th, 2024. So in the earlier videos I did, it was 2023, and then just recently 2024, and so on. So this is still in the early days, right? And this is actually before I got involved. I got involved in the case around June 1st or so onwards. So what happened before that wasn't around to see, and maybe most of you didn't get to see these conversations either, because not every screenshot is shown public, but I don't want to be a gatekeeper, so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, negotiating a little bit, but getting the outcome of being able to pass on the info to you. So appreciate your patience, and big shout out to everyone that has been watching in recent time and those that have returned and new viewers along the way. It's all good to see. Keep the momentum going. Big shout out to Andrea last night for their super chat, super sticker. Appreciate that. And there's someone else, I didn't quite catch it because I was doing other things, but I think there was some gifted memberships. So I do appreciate that too. And welcome to everyone that's watching tonight, whether you're on catch up or if you are watching the live premiere. If you're here live, let me know your reactions in the chat box on the right hand side of the screen. And at any point, even after watching the video, if you have any thoughts, any questions, any answers or discussions, whatever it is, be sure to drop a comment down below under the video. It helps with spreading awareness. It helps YouTube push the video out there so then more people can see it and learn about the case. And then more people will know what's up and what's going on in the background. If you do want to support my channel, for example, below in the comment section, pinned message, there is a PayPal link to do with me and also a channel membership. I have created a new custom emoji just recently, and I'm going to try and add in another exclusive one very shortly. So if you want to use those emojis and stuff, feel free to become a member on the channel. With that all being said, the order of how we'll do things today, we're just going through the notes bit by bit in the order of how the screenshots and the conversations were. I'll read them, analyze if necessary, bring up some counterpoints or other stuff I can remember, what's been said at other points in times, either by Caden, by Alicia, or anyone else in between. And you feel free just to listen in and relax. So continuing off from where we left off last time, I believe it was to do with the golf clubs and how Caden said at the end of the party, they just disappeared. Now, what's truly defined by at the end of the party, because when it comes to the wrongful death lawsuit filed in recent time, that was mentioning the end of the party as in much later on in the day. But if you're referring to end of the party, well, actually, I think it was referring to end of the party, as in when arguments took place, but that was much earlier, around the time when Noah may have been leaving. But Caden's saying at the end of the party, as in later on, I guess. Depends how you define it, right? But that's what we're looking at. Brought it up in last night's or the night before video with golf clubs and alternative points of views and evidence and whatever else in between. Just make sure to check it out. It'll make sense. But today, where we're focusing on, where it starts off as of May 24th onwards, is a screenshot, first of all. Someone, don't know who it is, I'll be honest, someone in contact with Caden at that time and reposted a screenshot to do with Jack Newton. That screenshot conversation of Jack Newton and Justin Roy. Now, was the full context given? Not really, only from what we've already seen. And from the screenshot, the convo with Jack and Justin, Jack Newton said, well, the cops ruled out Noah being beat. Is that true? Is there hard evidence and proof that the police have ruled out Noah Presgrove being beaten up? Take in mind, it was Caleb Newton in his own statement on Facebook publicly at some point in 2024 and claimed, well, I was speaking to cops and they told me hit and run was ruled out and Noah being beaten up was also ruled out. And I said to you, well then what else could it be then? What else can it be? Take in mind that video, what I did was falsely reported for privacy violations, even though the video that I did was looking at a public statement by Caleb Newton, but that video was taken down by a false report by YouTube. I was silenced there, just like how I was silenced when I just did a comparison with the Warwick boating accident with Caleb Newton back in 2020. That video was falsely reported for privacy violations, even though every last bit of written text and what I read out was public. Not good, is it? But let's be honest, in recent times, some Kaden Pressy related videos and whatnot, or Alicia related, where she outright lied, that video was falsely taken down. Let's just spend a bloody second right now and acknowledge that Warlight refs, specifically by YouTube, have been poorly treated when covering this case. Very extremely important videos that I've spent hours making to upload for them later to be falsely reported and taken out of nowhere. No chance given for me to defend myself and no chance given for me to make an appeal. Screwed over. Do I deserve that? I don't think so. So some things have been lost along the way. Yeah, I could possibly do re-uploads and I'll try to when possible, but we need to get on with the breaking news first, hence why we're here. But okay, there might have been an official statement from my memory on Facebook or maybe even Twitter by OHP that officially was ruling out a hit and run. And that seems to be agreed upon ever since and mentioned several times in official news reports and articles. OHP has ruled out hit and run, and people in the community re-quote that too. Okay, seems to be stability, consistency there. But for cops to rule out Noah Presgrove being beaten up, I've yet to see hard evidence of that. And for any witnesses and those watching right now this video, and if you're here during the live premiere, I want your thoughts in the comment section or even the live chat. I want you to let me know, have you seen actual documentation, photos, screenshots, posts, tweets by OHP, by police officially ruling out a beatdown? Because this wrongful death lawsuit highlights the possibility of a beatdown. I mean, no mention of a hit and run. Now, if it was official that a beating was ruled out, would the family file a wrongful death lawsuit and give the example of a beatdown? Or would they be conscious and not include that because police have already ruled it out? And because I've not seen police rule it out, but the family have included it in the wrongful death lawsuit, it makes it seem like that it's still on the table. It might be unlikely as to what other people say, people in the community and those from the dark side that say it wasn't a beatdown, it doesn't match the injury patterns as seen on the autopsy. Okay, it might not match, it might not be, but has it been ruled out officially, or is it just still up for debate? And this is Jack Newton stating it at the time that the cops have ruled it out. So what, Jack was told something about it and then he told Justin, but did the police tell us public? Did the police tell the family it, that it was been ruled out? No, only a hit and run. So what is Jack Newton saying by this? Is Jack Newton being honest? Is it a lie? I mean, of course, by someone like Jack and some others, of course it would be of their benefit if a beatdown was ruled out. And the only reason why I can say that more so now is because retrospectively, and with what's gone on in recent time more so, is that with the wrongful death lawsuit and what's been filed, and the defendants' names on there, at least 2 of the defendants supposedly responsible in aims of a beatdown and attack on Noah. So if it was ruled out officially, well, those defendants' names who could be linked or associated with a beatdown on Noah, it wouldn't hold much weight because it's already been ruled out officially. Okay, it's not in quite the same order of how things have gone about, but if you're going to link one thing with another or counter with a previous, it's possible to do so. But I just find it interesting because, of course, the light side doesn't want it to be a beatdown, but they feel strongly that it is that outcome. And then people from the dark side strongly don't feel it is a beatdown, but more so a possible accident. Would the dark side want it to be a beatdown? You know, people could say, why do you ask these silly questions? They're not silly questions. It's trying to work out the mentality and attitudes of humans, because you can never be too sure or certain what's going on in people's heads, because some people are very passionate, maybe a bit too much, and push some things a little bit too much as if they are wanting it to be that, or they're trying to convince themselves that it is that cause of death or other people. I've done my analysis with time, and I would have made little points about that. Depends how far people push, how far people go, and if it's in an unnatural way, it says a lot. Now, is Jack Newton pushing the ruling out of a beatdown? Well, it's just based on what he's been told by cops. But how come the family haven't been told that, as like what Jack's been told then? So is Jack making it all up? Has it been misunderstood? Did the police rule it out in the past but then change their mind down the line onwards? You let me know what you think and what you know of. Next point mentioned, I believe by Jack, was Justin. You know I'd tell the cops if I knew of anything. Is that Sam? Who knows? But it clearly highlights who Jack was having a convo with in that screenshot. It was with Justin Roy. Next point mentioned, that went to sleep early, as in Jack, because of going fishing with my dad, as in his words. But what's defined as early, going to bed early? Well, the fishing trip is on the Monday. At what time exactly? I don't think it was ever really given, but either in the early hours of the morning or maybe the night before, it was planned that that's what was going to happen, a fishing trip. Okay, people may regard Monday morning, early Monday morning, as Sunday night if they're going to sleep for the very first time from Sunday's events with the crossover. I get that, but Sunday is Sunday, Monday is Monday when we're talking retrospectively and based on the timeline. Now, Jack Newton has mentioned in that conversation when responding back to Justin, as in, well, what time is considered early when going to bed? And Jack said, well, I went to sleep before 1 a.m. That's a problem, because 50 minutes later, based on a supposed time stamp associated with a selfie of Noah Presgrove and Jack Newton in the bathroom at 1:50 awake. Then at 2:42, when Caden's woken up from his sleep, when Alicia calls, identifies and sees Jack Newton with Noah. Of course, Jack could have gone to sleep at a certain point and could have woken up in between, resting, sleeping, moving about in between, just like Mikey Lair in a way, or maybe Brylan Sweat. People can rest and then get up, move about, especially at a party. So it's always worth acknowledging that. For when Kaden Pressy saw Jack, well, did Caden actually see Jack asleep? No, because Jack was supposedly asleep in a different room, a bedroom with Carter Combs, so it would have been behind closed doors. Wouldn't have seen when Jack comes and goes, when he wakes up, when he drifts off. So it is limited the point of view there. Take in mind, we've not got onto the Kaden Pressy stuff just yet in terms of Caden's response, but we're getting to that shortly. Just wanted to acknowledge, the early things because it really did stand out. So going to sleep early because of the fishing. Depending on when the fishing trip, the timing of that, when that was announced and agreed upon, that would be relevant to when you consider going to sleep early. Now, if the fishing trip, and I'm just giving an example, if the trip was arranged on a Monday and it was talked about and discussed on a Sunday, it means you got more than enough time to prepare and more than enough time to get some quality sleep and actually get earlier sleep, depending on what's relevant to the timing of when you were supposed to be meeting up with your dad, your grandfather, etc. Because originally the plan was for Jack to go with Carter Combs, I think. Yeah, it was to go with Carter Combs, but that fell through. So it was just Jack. As well, I don't know how many other people have included Noah Presgrove or more so Kaden Pressy, but there was a bit of a, like, they're coming, but do I want them to come? It was something along the lines of that. Is it that deep? Maybe not, but I do remember glimpses of references of other guys that were supposed to be tagging along, but didn't. All I'm saying is, based on when Jack supposedly went to sleep and then when he woke up, is it relevant to the timing of getting early sleep based on the time of when you're supposed to be waking up and getting ready to go? Whether it's Sunday night, past midnight, early Monday morning. And in terms of what was said in Parts in True Crime interview, how it was referenced by Ashley Chadwick, Robin Smith, quoting from, what Victor Presgrove was told by Jack Newton is that it was something like 11:30 p.m. Now, it's interesting that 11:30 p.m. because there is a coincidental crossover that Kaden Pressy stated that he went to sleep at 11:30 as well. So who's influenced by who then, right? That 11:30 claim by Caden appears to be incorrect based on what Caden had said onwards and so on. But in the early stages, Kaden Pressy was the one to state that Georgia had left with Breeley from the party Sunday night at 11 p.m. Nope. But Caden worded it like that earlier on. And I believe it was in 2023 when that was stated. So earlier on in the case, when you have a fresher memory and mind, and yet Caden said something incorrect, that's not a good look, is it? But also by saying Caden, as in he went to sleep at 11:30. How do you go to sleep at 11:30 when what you said afterwards, as in on the mundane, what you witnessed or what you saw or what you were present to, you were awake like 12:48 in the morning of Monday when you were outside with Georgia after she threw up drinking too much. You went to sleep at 11:30. Oh, and Georgia left 30 minutes earlier. Oh, but at 12:48 you've got hard evidence and proof of you and Georgia at the party and awake and outside. You have contradicted yourself there. You have the evidence, you have the proof, and yet you go against it and you don't use it, so you contradict yourself. That is a really bad, unfortunate look, isn't it? But it's not all about Caden, because Jack Newton is supposedly inconsistent as well with when he went to sleep. Not as inconsistent as Kaden Pressy, but I do find it a bit of a coincidence based on the original time that Jack claimed to go to bed with Carter at 11:30. Whether it was a deep sleep, just resting in the bedroom, just resting and relaxing, the aim behind it, you're winding down, whether that be long or temporary. The same time as when Caden, in his own private conversation with someone, as we've highlighted and summarised beforehand in his video series, that Caden went to sleep at the same time when Jack did. So is it When Jack goes to sleep, Caden copies in wording and time? Or is it when Caden says he went to sleep at a certain time, Jack copies because it's the easier way out? Who is copying who? Because when you do have crossovers with specific times, bit of a coincidence, is it not? Just like 5:53, Tyler Hardy making the official call to police about Noah's body on the highway, and at 5:53, that's when Jack Newton was texting his father Caleb about the fishing trip. Waking up or so late, having to relocate, as in at the lake, the ramp, meet there and bring a spare hat because I've lost mine. Someone messed with it at the party. These crossovers of times, specific timestamps at the exact hour, the exact minute hand, very specific, right? Is it a coincidence? Is it more than that? Is it a sign, as some people have suggested? That's what needs to be acknowledged and shouldn't be forgotten about, okay? So, yeah, that was mentioned in Parts in True Crime about what Jack originally said to Victor. But then what Jack said to other family members of Noah Presgrave, that could be Robin and Ashley, it was going to sleep at 1 in the morning. And Jack Newton said to Justin, went to sleep before or around 1 in the morning. Oh, is that consistent? No, because then at a later point, based on what Ashley and Robin were quoting from the past and what they heard of, at a later point onwards, it wasn't 1 in the morning. It wasn't even earlier. It was actually an hour after, 2 in the morning. Oh, well, what was the overlap at 2 in the morning when Jack claimed to go to sleep? Oh, that's the time when Kaden Pressy claimed to go to sleep. What is going on? It's not just Jack who's inconsistent with when he went to sleep or claiming to. Kaden Pressy is as well. It's like frogs leaping over one another but following in the same direction. When Caden says, oh, I went to sleep at 11:30, Jack individually says, yeah, I went to sleep at 11:30 as well. And when Caden says, I went to sleep at 2 in the morning, then Jack's like, well, actually, no, I went to sleep at 2 in the morning. It wasn't 1 in the morning. It was 2 in the morning. Why did they seem to be copying each other? It's just a coincidence. It's not just one coincidence. It's 2. It's 3. Right? What is going on? Who is copying who? It just feels like that. And I want you to let me know if you think the same way, because there's a lot of like symbolisms going on in a sense. Now, why did Jack change his time to 2 in the morning? Is it because he was challenged when it came to that bathroom selfie of supposedly 1:50 in the morning of Noah and Jack in the bathroom, smiling and awake? Yeah, you'd have to change the time of when you went to sleep, because if you're claiming you went to sleep at 1 in the morning and then the next time you woke up was at, 5:30 or 5:53, whichever. If you're out for all those hours, then why is the footage of you and claims of you being awake? You got to either say, well, I woke up in between, or I didn't actually go to sleep. It was actually an hour later. It was actually 10 minutes after that bathroom selfie was taken. And take in mind that if Jack went to sleep at 2 in the morning, 10 minutes before that, that bathroom selfie showed Jack looking kind of out of it, pretty sleepy and tired in the face. So getting ready to wind down, you could interpret it that way. As for Noah Presgrave, he seemed a bit more alive, despite being pretty drunk and force-fed alcohol in some ways. It's kind of interpreted from the wrongful death lawsuit. So, worth taking in mind. Beside the timing of when Jack supposedly went to sleep, the mention of he passed away at 4 in the morning. Now, that might be what police told Jack, and then Jack told Justin, just like how Jack told Justin about the cops ruling out Noah being beaten. But in that particular screenshot, it did not show Jack acknowledging where he got the information from. It could have been in a different thread, lower or higher up, but the context wasn't there, either because Justin or someone else didn't take the correct screenshot and show the rest of the conversation, or Jack never actually gave a source or a reference as to where he heard it from or who told him. And that would be very unfortunate, because just based on limited context alone, how I interpreted it in the past can still stand till this day, based on limited context only, that it seems as if Jack Newton knows that Noah passed away at 4 in the morning, because to know that firsthand would mean you would have to be there to witness someone breathe their last breath. whether you're there in the moment of the death or just shortly afterwards and you stumble across Noah. Regardless, a witness to Noah's final breath. And the reason why that's extremely important is because at 4 a.m, was it made clear to the partygoers, was it made clear to dispatch police about Noah dead on the highway or anywhere? No. 5:53, or a bit before that, 5:43. Over an hour, nearly 2 hours later, we'll just round it up, nearly 2 hours later. So if Jack Newton knew at the time that Noah passed away at 4 a.m, and likely to know that would mean you'd have to physically be there, what was Jack Newton doing then for nearly 2 hours? Doing what exactly? No calls made to police, no mention to the partygoers. I know people in the chat might be pulling their hairs out and saying, but that's not the situation. That's not Jack. Jack didn't see anything. Jack wasn't there at 4 a.m. Just listen to my language and wording, okay? So there's no misunderstandings, and that can apply more so to the light side as well, because they like to misunderstand and not listen. What I'm getting at is, with limited context and limited wording based on Jack saying he passed away at 4 a.m, how do you know? Because police told you? Maybe that's the likely case, but because we didn't actually see Jack mention that line, like how he did with the cops ruling out Noah being beaten, it's up for debate, it's open-ended, open to interpretation. So based on a theory or a concept and the conditions being met, but there's no acknowledgement by police telling Jack about the time, Jack would have to know in other ways, by other means. And that could be, as example, present, seeing Noah. So what else could Jack have seen at the time? Did Jack freeze? Did he worry? Did he panic? What was going on in his mind if he was there? Does it conflict with the whole 5:53? Of course. Does it complement Kaden Pressy, though, of the 5:15 one? Kind of. Because if Jack knew first and then later 5:15 told Caden, yeah, consistent. But from what we've seen since, with Caden's inconsistencies, with the wrongful death lawsuit not even including Caden's timeline of 5:15, with the Mikey Les snap countering Caden's 5:15 timeline or the credibility of it, it's in shambles, in tatters to some extent. So what Jack says here and there can be in shambles and tatters because there's inconsistencies, no way around it. And with Kaden Pressy as well. Are they all bad as each other? It's just an unfortunate situation. It's not easy for them, I guess. But it also goes to show that with some people at least, even when it's early on in the case, early on when you would be thinking people have a fresh memory, clearly not always the case. So it seems somewhat limited. The other thing that Jack Newton mentioned was Noah Presgrove walked away from the house at around 3:30 based on everyone there. So all the other partygoers are stating that's when Noah supposedly walked away at 3:30. Has it ever been backed up with hard, absolute evidence, screenshots, timestamps, snaps? Not a chance, not at all. Never once seen it, never once seen it public. But a lot of people just go along with it and say, well, it's not been contradicted. It's what most people say. It's probably the one timestamp which hasn't changed that much, if not at all. It's the one timestamp which most people refer to and agree with, which is interesting. But is there any hard evidence of it? Anything whatsoever? Does anyone have any videos or clips or photos or selfies of 3:30, which just happened to catch Noah in the background walking away? Whether there's any arguments or not, just to show Noah is seen visibly walking away. CCTV cameras and all that weren't working, which is very unfortunate, because if they were, they could at least reinforce and confirm at 3:30. Would there be any phone data, phone records which would prove Noah walking away at 3:30? Because if Noah left his phone behind inside of the house as he's walking away from his phone, the phone's not going to do much good for Noah. It's not going to back him up, is it? Now, I could say on the sideline as a random question, whether that be as a poll in the chat or a poll on my channel, is if Noah Presgrove took his phone with him when he was walking away, would the outcome have been any different for Noah? Would he have still ended up dead? Would it have led to his phone being missing or disposed of to get rid of evidence? Would it have been manipulated in any way, shape, or format? Would there be any difference whatsoever? You let me know in the comments. I thought I'd just throw that in now because it's just come to my mind. So 3:30, interesting. Now, in terms of the Fox News article which we looked at recently, which did a very poor job in covering the case, a lot of misunderstandings, terrible disaster. I don't know if any of you remember it. You watch it last night, you get flashbacks. So it's been worded or interpreted that it was 3:41 when Noah walked away and an argument entailed. Yeah, wrongful death lawsuit does not word it that way. Fox 10 News or Fox News put it that way. Unnatural, not a good look. So 3:30 to 3:41, about 11-minute time difference. So when Jasmine Milan was out there 11 minutes later, post Noah walking away, would Jasmine have seen anything, heard anything? Who knows? Based on the video that I did last night and how Fox interpreted it and the language and wording, he could put the argument across and say Jasmine could have seen something. And with the mention by Jack in Partners in True Crime, the last one, highlighting that Logan Jernigan was last to see Noah walking away east. I know Lisa in the comment section said she's very confused as to who said what is what. Basically, Partners in True Crime, last interview conducted, they did a pre-recorded interview with Jack Newton. He didn't want to be on panel or on the live stream, whatever you want to call it, but did a pre-recorded interview with Partners in True Crime. Jack said what he had to say. And then Partners in True Crime did their podcast with Robin and Ashley Chadwick, No Press's family members, aunt and cousin, and they reacted to hearing to what Jack had to say over that pre-recorded interview. And Jack Newton worded it for the very first time. That's very important to mention. It was not mentioned before that, and I've never seen it before that, but for the very first time, Jack Newton stated, oh, it was Logan last to see Noah walking away, heading east. And then Robin cut in and said, can you pause it? Well, from what we've heard, what we've been told by Jasmine Milan, it was Avery who was last to see Noah walking away. And then in the community, in the past, people were stating it was Jack. Could it be Jack? Could it be Logan and Avery all together? Very likely. Based on the wrongful death lawsuit, how it's been filed and worded, that just before, during, or after Noah walking away, that Jack and Avery had a verbal fight, a verbal argument with Noah Presgrove. It would mean, if it's around the time when Noah's walking away, it would mean Jack and Avery would be present to have that argument with Noah, hence why there would be the witnesses to see Noah walking away. As for Logan, though, how does she tie up in it? Well, because of the bedroom debacle. Noah reaches out, can I sleep in your bed? Can I sleep with you? And they say no. And then Noah then goes to Avery and no. Words exchanged, tension, walking away. Logan may follow, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to cool down the situation. Who knows? All linking to the same possible event or close to it, which has a psychological magnetizing effect, which draws people to the certain direction towards someone because there is unfinished business and people have got a piece of their mind to share with Noah at the time. It is very possible. So with that being said, 3:30 is quite an important timestamp. 3:41 just as important. The time frame window between 3:30 and 3:41. I bet there are still grey areas in between that. Inside of the party house, outside of the party house, how far Noah made it in for, if walking away at 3:30, 11 minutes later, how far did Noah make it? How much distance did he cover? What did he do in that space of time? Still, it's before the 4 a.m. cut-off point of when Noah supposedly passed away. Even if the police said that, or estimated it, how do you estimate? How do you break it down to 4 a.m? Now, I know Tim Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, mentioned about blood being fresh at the highway, meaning Noah would have had to have passed away or so at a later point and probably bled out and died on the highway as well. And trying to work it back to the location, to the freshness of blood that could be determined, and then working back to the time of death. Not that we came to a specific date, a specific time, but do you remember that, Tim? When we were trying to link one to another, and then working backwards. Could be possible to do. Did the police do something like that, or did the police find evidence to suggest a relevant time of 4 a.m? If it was 4 a.m. when Noah passed away, would the blood still be fresh by 5:43, 5:53, 6 in the morning, 6:18, when it dried up by then. I'm not an expert, that's why I'm just asking some questions. Now, beside that, Jack Newton added on by saying, I have seen Noah Presgrove at the highway. I saw Noah, he wasn't beaten up. And Justin Roy, before that, was adding in, well, I've seen a beaten up face before. I've seen people beat up. I know what they look like. And Jack saying, well, I saw Noah. He wasn't beaten up. Is Jack an expert when it comes to like autopsies, when it comes to looking at the condition of someone physically and visually and the injuries? No, not an expert, but I don't know, it might have to look a certain way in order to say that it's clearly not a beatdown. But then is Jack referring to a beatdown as in a kicking, punching, and that's it? Or was Jack not considering the idea of a beatdown which involves melee items, which can cause more damage than fist at times? Who knows? Anyway, with that being said, Kaden Pressy's response to that reshared screenshot by whoever in the Facebook Messenger combo. Kaden Pressy did a Facebook post, which I have never seen before, but I'll summarize it to you now. I don't know if that post is still online, but if at a certain point when it can be done, I'll show you like a screenshot of it. But in the moment with what I've got, I'll just relay it to you in words and pretty much word for word as well. Kaden Pressy said that you would feel the way or the same way. Call me a liar. Whatever you have to say won't change the truth. I know what I saw. Now, was Kaden Pressy directly responding to that convo with Jack and Justin? It can be interpreted that way, but I think it might run a little bit deeper in other directions, maybe to do with the shorts, the condition of the body, but also interpreted as in it being a beatdown, what Caden might think, compared to Jack saying it can't be and it's not, and he knows because he saw Noah and it doesn't look like a beat up. But what Jack saw, as in Noah, Caden saw too. But at what times? Of course, we've got the conflict there. But from 5:15 to 6 in the morning, you're looking at someone's body. As for the injuries, are they going to differ much? Not including the blood loss factor or the liver mortis or rigor mortis, in terms of the visual appearance, the damage. Is it going to change from 5:15 to 6 in the morning if you're doing that comparative timeline difference? Maybe not. As for fluids and that additional stuff, that can change, of course, as time goes on. But, you know, broken ribs are broken ribs, broken vertebrae are broken vertebrates. Hinge fracture, scalp torn off, is that. It's not really going to change. It's not going to heal up. It's not going to suddenly rip off anymore, if you get what I'm saying. So that could be how Kaden Pressy was responding to Jack there. But you feel that way. Call me a liar. Me, as in what Jack may have called Caden a liar, or Caden is saying, I dare you to call me a liar. Because at the end of the day, whatever you have to say, Jack, it won't change the truth. Now, the reality is, in people's lives, in life, everyone can have a certain truth to live by or believe in, but it doesn't mean to say it's the absolute truth. Some people can be a bit delusional. Some people are not quite there with it. Other people may not know the full context. And some other people, there might be other factors which causes displacement of thoughts or some kind of disconnect in which you believe it to be true, but you're not quite connected to reality or in the moment. That's not to directly say people are crazy, no. Factors which maybe people can't control, psychologically speaking, and memory-based issues as well. That one person's truth could be another person's lie or delusion. So you've got to take that into consideration. What Kaden Pressy believes in may be true to himself, but it's not true to the reality of what's really going on, or not true to what other people believe in. There can be a split, there can be a divide, and that's how it has been with time. Just like the split and divide between what Kaden Pressy saw at the highway compared to what other people saw. Specifically with the shorts, Caden saw black, other people saw white. Which one is it? Is it both? Could both people's realities be the truth? If that were the case, it would mean there would be a middleman factor, which would mean tampering with evidence, shorts being removed and replaced with white ones. That has been backed up by hearsay claims and just words only of highway footage showing that, but we've not seen the evidence publicly, we've not seen hard evidence, so it's hard to believe in. But I just wanted to give you a breakdown demonstration of how someone's truth can be true to themselves, another person's truth can be true to themselves, and both are true and correct at the same time. It means there has to be context in between to explain how two juxtapositions can exist at once, or one after the other, and both be correct. So I hope you understand that. If you need it breaking down or explaining any further, I can do so later or in the comments section. Caden says, I know what I saw. Yeah, you may have seen it a certain way, but did you see it the proper way? Are there any other factors which could have come into play which may have altered with perception, mind, or memory? I mean, if Caden says one thing then and changes it drastically later, and Caden says, I know the truth, it won't change it. I know what I saw. I know what I believe in. But do you, Caden? And that's not meant as an insult. Don't be, and when I say don't be, I mean the general public. Don't be taking it as an attack on Caden. For Kaden Pressy, in his own words, to state that at 11 p.m. Sunday night, Georgia Brealey left. Then for Kaden Pressy at 12:48 to have hard evidence and proof to take a photo of Georgia and Caden outside Monday, 12:48. Makes no sense. Hard evidence proves Georgia was still there and Caden was awake. So what Caden claimed privately in the background was either a lie or a big mistake. Why didn't Caden use his own evidence, which he had access to at the time, or at least Alicia, when passing it on as in a photo with the timestamps attached? Why do you do that? It's unusual in a sense. Anyway, the other thing, what we need to mention is on the messenger point of view. So, okay, you had a Facebook post, and the Facebook post, the comment section showed a screenshot by a woman, which was to do with, I guess, passing on from Jack Newton and Justin Roy's convo of passing away at 4 a.m, right? Kaden Pressy's response on Messenger was, this lady posted them, then instantly deleted right after. So I'm guessing that's where it is, the 4 a.m. one screenshot. Unknown person responding back to Caden at the time said, if you were shown a picture of the service truck driver, would you be able to identify them? That's extremely important. It was some weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, I did my own video where I showed a photo, also a mugshot, because it's the only one that existed, of Cash Alsop. At the time, Cash Alsop, chief volunteer firefighter who was on scene at 6 a.m. onwards, attending the scene where no Press was found. Okay, Kaden Pressy is saying he was there at 5:15, as in Caden was at the highway earlier. Cash Alsop was there later. How is there a connection? Because Caden said there was a service truck driver at the highway when he was there, and that service truck driver told him to leave and was swearing. Cash Alsop just so happened to be in a service truck. Bit of a coincidence. I think Caden made the reference to the service truck driver was in a high-vis jacket. Well, it just so happens that Cash Alsop supposedly was as well. Coincidence? And it gets even more coincidental in just a second, so don't go anywhere. So I'll just read the question once again because it's very important. Let's make sure you're listening. They asked Kaden Pressy, if you were shown a picture of the service truck driver, would you be able to identify him or them? And Caden's response was, and we are skipping ahead because his reply was a bit later, I'll read it out now. Caden said, most likely not able to identify the service truck driver. I never did get close enough to get a good look of him. He wasn't skinny. Wasn't skinny. Cash Alsop is on the fatter side. Stocky build. Short. And Caden says, well, the service truck guy who was in a high-vis jacket that told me to leave wasn't skinny. Well, Cash Alsop was a service truck driver. Cash was in a high-vis jacket, and Cash isn't skinny. There's a bit of a crossover, is there not? So there is a case to put forth and say, well, maybe when the service truck guy told Caden to leave, it was Cash telling Caden to leave, And that's very significant and game-changing because Cash was there at 6 in the morning onwards. For Caden to be told by Cash to leave, Caden would have to be there at 6 in the morning, meaning the 5:15 timeline wouldn't be correct. That's major. So let's return back to some of the earlier notes just before that. I wanted to skip ahead then just so you got the flow from question to answer. So what was said just before Caden responded directly to that question, the other person added on and was saying, Caden, if you do go on these podcasts, you should call out Carter Combs maybe, on her BS. I would also tell them, the podcast and the public, how Jack Newton blew you off when you asked about Noah Presgrove shorts and how the other three guys didn't want to talk about it when you asked them. So let's just break that down bit by bit just for now. The date of this is May 24th, 2024. It was July when Caden did, I believe, his first podcast interview. Not too sure when One Crime at a Time on TikTok did their live stream with Robin, Ashley, Deborah Smith, and Kaden Pressy that showed up. He wasn't anticipating a live, but participated anyway. I don't know which one came first there, the TikTok one or an actual podcast, as in on YouTube. But in terms of these convos and messages, what we're looking at, this was all said before Caden showed up on Partners in True Crime for the Part 1 interview, which is important. So you're seeing behind the scenes, as in thoughts and mindsets of Caden, if you're going to do this, which he eventually did, make sure to do this, make sure to say that, make sure to call this person out. What did Kaden Pressy say in response? We'll get to that shortly. But just breaking it down, if you do go on these podcasts, as in Partners in True Crime later, which Caden did, you should call out Carter on her BS. But what BS exactly? What Carter Combs said when defending Jack Newton by saying, well, Jack actually ran through and spent 1 minute in my bed, head in the pillow. And Caden's like, nope, that's not the case. Jack burst through but did not run through, did not go into her bedroom and did not stay there for a minute. He was there for maybe 15 seconds and then left. Ooh, wow, big deal in discrepancies considering the huge discrepancies with Caden and beyond. Much bigger, right? Carter, in what she relayed about the shower, is that what Caden's referring to as in, well, not Caden, but this this member of the general public reaching out to Caden, saying about make sure you call out on the BS. Why is the shower BS? How do we know if it's BS or not? We were there to see it. No. Was Caden there to see it? No. So don't really know. Do we have much to compare it with? And comments made? No. How many witnesses were present during the shower though? Carter, Jasmine, Noah, who can't talk, and a buddy, whoever that is, that jumped on in with Noah and had fun having a shower and laughing. Who knows? At least 4 people and only 3 of them could talk. And have we seen much about it? No. Many discrepancies? Not really. Claims of footage existing but never publicly seeing it. But then Michael Faisca said from a group chat called The Dark Side or something like that. People in that group chat were confirming or passing on to Michael saying, here's a screenshot or this is what's present, and confirming that it's Noah unconscious in the bath. Weird. But the image is blurry, pixelated, and it can't be confirmed with confidence that it is Noah. It's a bit of waste of time, but it was passed on, which was interesting. So you make of that as you will. But for this member of the general public to say to Caden, to advise Caden, which, to be honest, should they be doing that? Shouldn't Kaden Pressy be doing what he thinks is best and not listening? Or shouldn't the general public know when to chime in and when not? If Kaden Pressy is going to do something important and speak out or reveal the truth, and then you've got members of the general public whispering in his ear, right, don't be doing this, but make sure you do that. Is that natural? Maybe not. Is there an outside influence? Yeah. Is that problematic? You could say so. People call out Alicia for being a bit of an influence in an unnatural way on Caden, such as with interviews, Partners in True Crime in the same room, influencing Caden, filling words, filling the gaps, finishing his sentences. Not natural. Some people were claiming that Alicia was just outside of the door of the interview room with the private police one of June 2024. Don't know how true that is, but So if you're going to call out Alicia there as what the general public do, the general public should also be calling out the other, this other member of the general public that's saying to Caden what he should and shouldn't do if he goes onto a podcast. But the mention of saying to Caden, you should highlight publicly in the podcast when Jack Newton blew you off. Now, is that slang? No, not really. For Jack to blow Caden off, I know last time I said pissed Jack off, and now we got Jack blowing someone off. No, don't misinterpret it. And I don't know if people interpret it differently from around the world or different languages or sentences. To blow somebody off does not mean oral activity or wrapping your mouth around an object lower down on a person's body. No, more so blowing somebody off is kind of like maybe shunting them, pushing them aside, either ignoring or dismissing, brushing someone off the shoulders, or at least that's how I interpret it. Shutting somebody down when they ask for something, when they have a question and it's just blowing off or whatever, no answer. No clarity, lacking. Okay, so it's pretty innocent. Did Jack Newton ever blow off Caden any other time? Supposedly, yes. That's when it came down to Caden in Parts in True Crime, I believe. The part one. When Caden talks about the golf clubs at the scrap pile behind Jack's place, Caden pointed it out and Jack said, put it down, it's nothing. Dismissive, blowing it off like it's nothing, treating it as it's irrelevant. Is that a defense mechanism though? Blowing somebody off, is it a defense mechanism? Maybe, maybe not. But did we ever see it ourselves of Jack blowing off when asked about Noah's shorts? Don't think so. Is there any screenshots or hard evidence of that? Did Caden ever share it public? Did anyone else see it public? You let me know in the comment section. Blowing off about the shorts, you shouldn't need to blow off at all. Either there were black shorts or there were white shorts. And if there were both, well then something in between, as in tampering with evidence. Shouldn't be too complex. Okay, later on when officials showed up, Emmy report and all that, found white shorts. But Caden saying he saw black shorts. If Caden was there earlier, could have been a different pair. But if Caden is incorrect with his times and he's made a big mistake there, and he was actually there at 6 a.m, if Caden was to say, I got that wrong, sorry, yeah, I was there at 6 a.m, but I still stand by my truth, they were black, they weren't white. Well, then it's very unlikely what Caden says. Because if you're there at the same time, and the majority see them as white and you see them as black, either colourblind or wearing glasses, which alters your light levels, shadow levels, and how you visualise colours maybe, could go a bit deeper. It's been mentioned that Kaden Pressy was prescribed or had certain corrective lenses or glasses which can alter colours or shadows, what you see, so that could have influenced Caden if he had been wearing certain specific glasses at the time. Was Caden actually wearing any glasses at the time? Any sunglasses? Honestly, I don't know. But if it's not glasses but lenses, as in what, contact lenses, well then that's different, isn't it? That's in your eye. You're not going to know, you're not going to see it yourself. But the mention of and how the three other guys didn't want to talk about the shorts when you asked them. The three other guys, as in Mikey, Brylan and Isaac, who were at the highway with Caden, as Caden claims, at 5:15. And at 5:30 they left because they were told to by the service truck driver. But at 5:27, a few minutes before they left and were told to, Mikey Lair, that's claimed to be at the highway with Caden, was actually at the party house, caught on camera, a snap at 5:27, resting in bed, eyes open, laughing and joking, like they didn't even know of the news of Noah's death at the time. So it kind of throws Kaden Pressy's 5:15 timeline in the air, and not in a good way, discredits him. It's unfortunate, but that's just hard evidence meeting just words from Caden, which you could say is hearsay to some extent. So unfortunate, isn't it? You let me know what you think. as for these three guys not wanting to talk about the shorts, well, you could argue and say Mikey not talking or not wanting to because he's got nothing to say or comment on because he wasn't actually there at that time, from what Caden states. Could say that. As for Brylan, as for Isaac, don't know about them. Now, Alicia gave her comments once, if you remember. Alicia was wording it as if, well, kind of like Brylan, the way he is, more of a follower, a bit of a sheep, following behind Jack Newton, trying to please him or be in the good books, and because of being around Caleb as well, being part of the cool kids, cool gang, underage, but being allowed to drink and act more like adults. So is Brylan under some kind of chain or strain as to what he can and can't say because he's on Jack's side or he wants to be in Jack's good books and Caleb, so not going to be honest. And as for Isaac, why is Isaac not talking? Take in mind, this was back then. This was like, what, May 24th, 2024. From May 24th, 2024 till now, have those three guys spoken to Caden since and given an update on what they think the colour of the shorts to be? Have the three other guys not spoken to Caden because they've got to protect themselves or lawyers have advised them not to talk to Caden and keep to themselves? Who knows? One interpretation. Anyway, with that advice given by the member of the general public advising Caden to call out Carter in the podcast and to call out Jack Newton and even the three other guys, Brylan, Mikey and Isaac, Kaden Pressy said that was my plan. As in, Caden already had it in his mind. That's exactly what he was going to do. So fast forward to when Caden does his podcast. Did Caden call out Carter on her BS? No, not really. Did Caden call out Jack Newton for blowing him off? Not to be interpreted incorrectly. No. To be honest, Kaden Pressy was quite lenient towards the others. Kaden Pressy in the Parts in True Crime interview was quite positive to Jack and so on, considering how it's been interpreted elsewhere and how it's been talked about online and how Jack's been described. Caden was quite fair on Jack and so on, and with the other party goers. Caden was positive towards the party girls as well, including Carter and the others, as in long-time friends, meeting in the car parks in the past and hanging out that way and drinking. Well, though, in the Part 2 interview, with the same podcast group, Parts in True Crime and Caden, and with Alicia beside him, well, Caden suddenly said, well, I've not been to this house before, the party, and I've not met these girls before. It's the very first time. But in the first interview, you, Caden, said that you met these girls in the past and were friends with them long time and met in the car park. Then in Part 2, you're saying, I've never seen them before. That's a problem. Why does it change and switch up so drastic like that? So it seems like the plan that Kaden Pressy had, which is similar to what the stranger advised Caden to do, wasn't followed through with. But from May to July, things can change, right? Kaden Pressy had also mentioned that, referencing back, because this was in the order of how it went, Caden is most likely not able to identify the service. As in, this is in his own words, I won't likely be able to identify the service truck driver, which is unusual in a way. Caden didn't get close enough to look at him. But I'm sure Caden did say he was in a high-vis jacket, and I believe he had a beard to some extent. So you had a close enough look at him to be able to identify certain characteristics and features. But what, not close enough to see the eyes, the nose, any scars or marks or resemblances like that? Or is it Caden contradicting himself from what he says in the a few months on in the July Parts in True Crime Part 1 interview compared to what he said here, which was a few months earlier, as in, you know what, I wouldn't be able to identify the service truck driver that was in a high-vis jacket, that was having a beard and wasn't skinny. Yeah, I mentioned all these specific details about someone who I didn't actually see or identify that clearly. But yeah, I can't identify him. Oh no. Depends how you interpret it, of course. But it kind of is on the lines of when Caden confidently said, whether that be for a Facebook statement, most likely, that Caden saw Noah reaching out to specific party goers about a lift, a ride back home. Months later, during my YouTube video live premiere, Caden said in the live chat that he did not see who Noah reached out to, but Caden heard who Noah was speaking to, and that Caden said, give or take some time, I might be able to remember who those people were. So you base that confidence of language and then it backtracking. His senses being more full, but then later not. Oh, I saw them, but no, I didn't. I only heard them. So when Caden is like referring to being at the highway, in the Partners in True Crime interview, from what I remember, Caden said he was close to Noah, the body. Caden went back to his vehicle to get a towel to be in the moment of just about covering Noah up, respect the privacy, and then was confronted by service truck driver, high-vis jacket, a bit of a beard, aggressive, swearing, and Caden said he respects his elders, so he listened to what the guy had to say and left, as told to. Enough detail given, and it seems like proximity-wise, close enough to be able to identify the person and with some details given already. And yet in his conversations, Caden's responding with, well, if I was shown a photo of who I supposedly came across, or a similar face maybe, I just wouldn't be able to identify who they are. Are we asking Caden to identify the actual name of the person, or just at least identify that a photo shown as an example is of that service truck driver? So, you know, if we showed Kaden Pressy a mugshot of Cash Allsup, who's a service truck driver at the time, who was present at the highway at the time, but at a later time, who was wearing his high-vis jacket, who was a bit chunky in size, but also, as Ken said, not skinny, so a bit of a link there. If you showed a photo of Cash Allsup to Kaden Pressy, would Caden say, you know what? No, I can't identify or say whether that's him or not because I wasn't close enough to him at the highway. Well, was that other person close enough to you, Caden, to tell you to leave? Close enough to hear the voice, close enough to identify them not being skinny, close enough to be able to identify that they're wearing a high-vis jacket, close enough to identify that they've got a beard, close enough to identify that they're swearing and aggressive. Close enough. But how close is enough? Really close or far away? At a bit of a distance or like really close like that? What would it be considered as based on Kaden Pressy's point of view interpretation? Who knows? But you let me know what you think, at least. Beside that, the stranger added on saying, every time Carter Combs, I'm assuming it's Carter Combs, the only other Carter would be Brooke Bounds Carter. I'll interpret it as Carter Combs. So this person says, every time Carter says something, she deletes it like she can't control herself. Now, I find it hard to believe it being Carter Combs because I've not really seen much at all by Carter Combs. So this could be about Brooke Bounds Carter, but when people use last names only, well, no, not last names only, really. BBC last name, Carter, but Carter Combs, it's the first name. But you get what I'm saying. Just like when people say Newton, which Newton? When people say CN, Caleb, Colton, one's a father, one's the son. People aren't always clear as to who they're referring to for names, surnames, last names, initials. It's not clear enough, not elaborated. I try to when I mention names. So it could be Brooke Bounds Carter, it could be Carter Combs. You let me know what you think. But every time Carter says something, she deletes it like she can't control herself. But I've not seen Carter Combs post or say much online. I mean, have you seen much mentioned by her? Did she delete a lot? Is this somewhat influenced by the claims of the party itself and factory resetting the phone as the claims are made? I wonder. Kaden Pressy's response to that, though, was, I do agree that Caden agrees that Carter can't control herself at times and is constantly deleting stuff what she's already said, as in online. Caden then added on by saying, well, Jack Newton hasn't texted me about the Facebook post that I did. And that's the one where he was saying, call me a liar. I know my truth. I know what I saw. I was there. So Jack knows what he saw and what he states, and Caden was doing a bit of a response back, but public online, and Jack did not respond to Caden at the time about that, following up or trying to clear the air. Was it ever cleared up? Who knows? The person responds back, adding on with a different question, and said, and this is where it gets really important, just as important as before, but this is where it gets even more important, so make sure you listen in. The question asked was, to Caden, was there any adults there at the party? Other kids have said Caleb Newton was. There's a lot to interpret from that, and Caden's response may shock you, depending on how you interpret the language. Were adults present at the party? First of all, facepalm, okay? Anyone else want to use my custom emoji? If you're a member of my channel, use the facepalm emoji right now, okay? There were adults at the party. How do we know? Well, how old was Caden? About 19. Noah, 19. Jack, maybe 19. Avery, 22. And so on and so on. What am I getting at? With the exception of Avery, those names that I've mentioned, and some other people, under the legal age of drinking, but over the age of 18. 18 and onwards, you're a young adult. If Noah's 19, if Jack's 19 and Caden's 19, they are adults, and others that follow of the age of 18 onwards. Young adults at a party. So when the general public keeps asking, were there any adults at the party? Of course there were. It's obvious. But I do understand what people are saying. When people ask, were there any adults there? What people are meaning to say is, are there any parents or guardians there related by blood to these party goers? Fully grown, much older adults, like Stevie Howard, Caleb Newton, Renee Millan, parents to party goers, that's what's meant. It's just language and wording once again. It really needs to be improved, because to say, were there any adults there, makes it sound like the bloody party consisted of toddlers, teenagers and minors drinking. You know, a bit silly, isn't it? But for this stranger to say, other kids have said Caleb was present. Which kids? Members of the general public have claimed Caleb was at the party, online in communities. But when people normally refer to the kids or other kids, they mean the party goers. Right? Okay, they're not kids, but people have their own slang and references to how they address people. Fine. But which party goers are claiming that Caleb was at the party then? Do we have any proof? Any screenshots, confirmation of that? Because I've yet to see it. Kaden Pressy, previous in the conversations which we've already looked at, stated at the time, based on what Caden saw and witnessed, Caleb was not there. 100% Caden saying Caleb was not there at the party. Okay. But how does that match up with Caden's response? Well, I've got it written down on two pieces because I couldn't quite fit it on. So I'll read it probably twice. Caden said, honestly, I did not see Caleb at the party. He may have been present at the party early Friday. I didn't arrive Friday night. What does that actually mean then? Caden was there Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Caden said in the private police interview that he was there Friday. And what's mentioned in his Facebook Messenger, depending on how you interpret the wording, could be considered Caden confirming he was there Friday. And in the Partisan True Crime interview podcast, part 1, Caden said, "I don't want to talk about Friday." Why don't you? On the sideline, Alicia said Caden had only just got to the party past midnight, early Sunday morning. Or just before past midnight. Okay, so it still counts as Caden arriving at the party on a Saturday, but only for a few minutes before it goes into Sunday morning. How true is that? Well, Alicia has said things Caden hasn't. Alicia's put words in, so you can't trust it. It's weird. Alicia worded it as if Caden was with his mom, dad, watching a movie at home, and on and off, Jack kept calling Caden, and Caden finally picked up and said, "Hey, come on down, I'll pay for your gas money," which didn't happen, but Caden agreed to come on down. But the time it took to drive on down there, 45-minute drive, it was almost past midnight, early Sunday morning. So how true is that? Because how Caden's worded it other times, no time was given as to when he arrived on the Saturday, but he did go on a Saturday. And you could think maybe earlier on in the day, afternoon, evening, or even the morning to make the most of the party. But in this particular Facebook convo, Caden said, and I don't know if it's with the same person as what we've referred to in the past, not in the past, some days or weeks ago, when you had that member of the general public talking to Caden, close friends, and then Alicia was pissed off at that person, and they said, well, because of the list, the Donna Bond list of the names of people, and had to include the person's name because other people thought if it didn't, Caden would be seen as a narc and it would all go wrong. And now Alicia's blaming me for it, but even though I did do it and people told me to do it, but Alicia's blaming me like I'm not responsible, but I am. And I said I am, but I'm not. And then I've got to walk away, Caden. Goodbye. Nice knowing you. Take care. I made a promise to Alicia that I'm not going to talk to you ever again. That could be a separate person. But Caden said what he said with her or him. And like with this person, her or him, Caden had said something different in a sense. Caden, with that other person, if it is a different person, Caden said, well, from what I saw, Caleb was not there 100%. And now Caden is saying, well, Caleb might have been there early Friday. Just look very close. Well, you can't look, you can't see it visually, but just listen in very closely because it's really extremely important, this language and wording. This is not mentioned as a negative, but I just want to use it as an important example. Brenda had a good point when it came to what Dwayne was saying about items of possible interest and possible evidence, which Dwayne had. And Dwayne said, and more, using the letter N, short for and more, and it's irrelevant. And then something along the lines of, it's none of people's business, or outsiders don't know us. But it was the end of the sentence as in a bullet point, meaning you're moving on to the next point. But it may not have quite a correlational link to what you just said before that bullet point. So it's its own separate thing. And the original question asked to Dwayne was the tank top, the one supposedly cut up, and Dwayne was saying it wasn't cut up, or I've got that one in okay condition, and more. And it's irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? You've just admitted that you have the tank top which Noah wore at the party or took down, and Dwayne saying it's irrelevant. You look at that language and wording. So, when looking at this here, Caleb may have been present at the party early Friday. I didn't arrive Friday night. When you read the sentences out separately, or if you broke them down into individual sentences, both make sense. As in, Caleb may have been there early Friday. Okay. And then if Caden said, I didn't arrive Friday night. Okay, yeah, because you said you arrived Saturday. Yeah. But to use both those sentences into one is a problem. So what I'm getting at is, Caden is specific as for an estimated time or so, or a vague time as to when Caleb could have shown up at the party. And that's why Caden did not see Caleb. Basically, if Caden had said, Caleb may have been at the party on the Friday, but I didn't arrive on the Friday, I arrived on Saturday. So I wouldn't have seen who was there on Friday, meaning Caleb could have been. Okay. As soon as when Caden arrived at the party though on a Saturday, Caleb was not there, nowhere to be seen, because he had already gone, he had already left, he was only there for one day, for a few hours, and that was it. That makes sense. But how Caden words it, it doesn't make sense, or it's interpreted completely different. When Caden says, Caleb may have been at the party early Friday, makes it sound as if Caden was there in the afternoon or the evening of Friday. If Caden wasn't there on Friday whatsoever, why does it matter any given time as to when Caleb could have been at the house early Friday, mid-Friday, afternoon Friday, evening Friday? Why are you giving a specific estimated time slot as to when Caleb may have been there, and that's why you didn't see him, but you also say you didn't arrive Friday night? If you didn't arrive Friday night, it shouldn't really matter at what time in the day of Friday when Caleb may have been there. But for Caden to be specific, as in, it might have been early Friday when Caleb was there, you would expect ... because me, Caden, I was there Friday as well, but I didn't see Caleb. Maybe it's because Caleb was there early Friday and I arrived in the afternoon of Friday. So we were both there, but just not at the same time. But Caden doesn't word it like that. Caden says, Caleb may have been there early in the morning on Friday. I didn't arrive Friday night. What? And just because of what's said in the private police interview, as in Caden said, I was there Friday, using what was said in Caden's words in the police interview with what's mentioned here, it makes me think that it was poorly worded, and what Caden meant to say was, Caleb may have been there early Friday. I arrived Friday night. That's how I interpret it. It's not a good look, is it? And then it would link on to the parts in True Crime interview as to why Caden would say, I don't want to talk about Friday. Why? For such an earlier time and an event in the timeline as to when Noah wasn't even there. Why do you not want to talk about it? Why don't other partygoers want to talk about it? It's so quiet, isn't it? Keep going round in circles. I keep bringing it up, but no answers whatsoever. No photos, no snaps, no question, no answers. Just me talking about Friday. Or more so when I started off, and viewers have said it as well since. So this is major and problematic. What I've just said before and what I've gone over is extremely important. Hopefully you can see that. Next on, as for the convos, there was a screenshot posted and it looked like it was written up. I don't know if it was a transcript from the interview of Caden, but then it didn't sound like it was coming from Caden. Maybe somebody else that made notes when listening to it. But then, no, it can't be, because it would have been before the Parts in True Crime interview, unless the interview was recorded at a different time and then posted at a different month. I don't know, to be honest. But it couldn't have been that far back, because it had to be after the private police interview from the looks of it. With what Caden already knew of, maybe it was already talked about or passed on to someone that made notes about it before it even aired in the podcast public, maybe. And all it was to do was the mention of seating or sleeping, resting arrangements. As in screenshot mentioned about Brylan Sweat being on the floor, Mikey Lair on the couch, and Isaac was still in the recliner. This is more so in regard to 5:15 or onwards when Caden was woken up second time round. with the news of Noah's death. Because at 2:42, Brylan was on the couch, Mikey was on the floor. At 5:15, Mikey on the couch, Brylan on the floor. They've switched places. But why exactly? Mikey is more likely and more willing and more wanting of switching place with Brylan because Mikey's had to rest on the floor. But take in mind, whilst Caden went to sleep at 2 in the morning and 42 minutes later was woken up by Alicia, 11 minutes before that call, when Caden was asleep, Mikey Lair was outside on the front porchway under a traffic barrel, joking around with Pepe Guam. So it means that Mikey was on the move here and there in between. When Caden was fast asleep, Caden wouldn't know. So the same could apply to Brylan at a later point. At the time, whichever time that was, of when Noah went for a shower, and when Carter on Facebook mentioned about Noah's best buddy jumping on in, could that have been Brylan? But why Brylan? Because of the side-by-side rollover? Likely not. Wouldn't have participated from the looks of it. But just for a general shower? Maybe. But if Brylan was already resting or sleeping, why would you then wake up and think, right, I've just woken from a sleep, I need to have a shower now? Why not have a shower before you go to bed? So there's a few inconsistencies there. It could be somebody else that jumped into the shower. Some people along the way have claimed it was Brylan that jumped into the shower with Noah. The reason why I mentioned Brylan's name is because it would be a good enough motive or reason for Mikey to then switch places with Brylan. Brylan gets off from the couch to go and have a shower, jump in with Noah. Mikey is awake or resting and realises and thinks, well, I might as well take that couch for myself now. I've rested on the floor and it's been uncomfortable, so it makes sense. Not guaranteed. There could have been other actions or activities in between which caused Brylan to get up, move about, get a drink or go somewhere, and Mikey took the opportunity to switch places and take it. There's always that. Beside that, other things, other conversations which followed drastically afterwards, a bit abrupt. Kaden Pressy said, "No one is bothering me, but I recently got a pistol just in case." And Caden was responding back to the person commenting as in, how things are going, what's up, if anything does happen, just reach out and so on. And Caden's like, no, it's okay, no one's bothering me, but I do have a firearm now. Well, with that firearm, which Kaden Pressy obtained then of May 27th, 2024 onwards, is that the same firearm which Kaden Pressy was using to try and shoot with the Netflix crew when it came to maybe using it as an excuse to get closer to being interviewed or miking himself up to try and get other partygoers to confess or speak out, and being in the same room, was it, as Kathy Bingham, or the crew passing on what Kane said in confidentiality to the crew, and then the crew passing it on to Kathy Bingham, I think. Do you remember that when Kaden Pressy said, I heard about the Netflix crew that were going to go out to somewhere and go shooting, and Caden thought, well, I'll take my gun with me. I can say to him, I've got my gun to use as well. Maybe use it as an excuse to then be close to the Netflix crew or to anyone else to listen in or to speak up or be interviewed or interview someone, It might be a link. Is there anyone else arming themselves? For Kaden Pressy to get a gun specifically because just in case means Caden feels that people are out to kill him, to get him. And now, at a later point when it came to Kaden Pressy, and it was just like some weeks ago when Caden, there was like a voice audio thing sent to whoever, and Caden was saying, with that being leaked or passed on and exposed about me miking myself up and how far I'm willing to go and to try and get other partygoers to confess and whatnot. And Kathy Bingham as well, with what she knows of. I'm a dead man. People are going to kill me, kind of put in that sense. But there's a big difference in between the two events. So even before Caden's interview was leaked, even before, in more recent time, with the Netflix crew kind of exposing Caden and putting him in harm's way, that early on Caden already felt in danger. So it must be even worse now. based on his mindset alone. Okay. Beside that, adding on, another point mentioned by Stranger said, Tim Howard is Will Coxon's PI, private investigator. I don't know how true that is, but Tim Howard, if it is the same name and same person, Tim Howard just so happened to be the leader, the creator of one of the Facebook pages, which at one point was called Noah Presgrove's Army, copying the original Noah Presgrove Army page, like an impersonation. I remember that. So I don't know if it's the same Tim Howard. If it is the same Tim Howard, and if they're Will Coxon's private investigator, is that professional? I mean, how much truth is there to it? I've not seen any hard evidence that this person is the private investigator, but makes you think. Kaden Pressy had mentioned, my mom told me not to talk to anyone. Now, just interpreting from that, Caden's mum telling him what he can and can't do, or just advising him what he should and what he shouldn't do. That kind of outside possible influence, which other people could consider interference. Is that what impacted Kaden Pressy and his friendship group and parting ways with those that he liked, or those that liked him, those parting ways with him because of Alicia talking a lot, or Alicia putting words into Caden and Caden distancing himself from certain partygoers, depending how the outlook is. For Caden's mum to say, don't be talking to anyone, if it's meant like that, literal and vague, what? Don't talk to anyone, don't talk to police, don't talk to OHP, don't talk to Noah's family. I mean, it could be consistent with don't talk to Noah's family, because it was Robin Smith that said we only found out about Noah supposedly wanting a ride back home because of the internet online. Kaden Pressy was a witness to it all, but Kaden Pressy never reached out privately to Robin Smith or supposedly the Presgrove family members. Huge breakdown in communication there. Did Kaden Pressy not tell Robin or other family members about Noah wanting a ride home because what? Alicia told him not to talk to anyone? It's not looking good. And it wasn't that long ago, in earlier conversations, as part of this series, before, I think it might have been November 2023, as part of the series what we've just done, but old screenshots, I think it might have been November 2023 or 2023 in general, Kaden Pressy said, I apologise for my parents. I wish they would cut it out or just stop talking on and on. They don't listen to me. So does that link to what Caden says here about his mum telling him what to do and what not to do? And Caden also saying about previous, maybe in 2023, that his mum is twisting Caden's words. It's not looking good, is it, if you put it together? The other person responded back, the stranger said, Stevie Howard is digging information out of you, Caden, to build an alibi. And Caden said, that's what my mum said too. Oh, is that what Alicia was thinking as well? And then Caden finished it up with, I hope she doesn't see her in public. Which way round is that meant? I hope my mum, Alicia, doesn't see Stevie in public. Well, based off that way of wording it, you can understand it worded that way, because if Caden had said, yeah, my mum has said the same thing, that Stevie is digging information out of me, as in Caden, to build an alibi, that my mum, Alicia, wouldn't be too happy with that, as Stevie's been sneaky and sly and not being upfront to Caden about it, stabbing him in the back in a sense, that motherly instinct, Alicia would protect Caden, give a piece of her mind towards Stevie. But based on what supposedly has been shown, supposedly at some point, of Alicia pinning down physically Caden's once girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, to the ground, and also supplying alcohol to underage people at some point at a parking lot, and racing people, drag racing to an extent, that if Alicia is supposedly capable of pinning down Caden's once girlfriend, then when Caden says, I hope that she doesn't see her in public, why? Because Alicia could physically do something bad to Stevie Howard then? Because you know what Alicia's like. It could be interpreted that way. Got to be careful with the language and wording. Oh my God, the notes are sticking to the bloody surface. I told you. My God, everything's sticking. Anyway, in terms of those notes, and in terms of that possibility of if Alicia saw Stevie in public and Caden saying, I hope that doesn't happen, sounds like something bad could go down, maybe physically or verbally, and it could harm one or the other. Yeah, that's bad, negative. Anyway, in terms of those screenshots of the conversations, that's all of them what I have seen up to now. I've not seen any more, so I can't do any more videos at this moment in time, if there are any more, of course. But everything what we've looked over and gone over is quite eye-opening, especially about the mention of, you know, Caleb may have been there Friday morning, I didn't arrive Friday night. Well, Friday night is different to Friday morning. Caleb may have been there in the morning, you didn't arrive at night, so you wouldn't have seen Caleb regardless. So why be specific in times then, unless you meant to say that you'd only gotten there by night time. So if Caleb was there earlier, you just wouldn't have seen him. Makes more sense. That kind of turns things upside down, because first time hearing some of this and how it's worded, amongst other things. So what's the truth and what's not? This, more so, well, what we've looked at today was 2024 onwards. So is this where things become less truthful? But then again, previous points mentioned in 2023, maybe the same month or just a few months after Noah's passing, Caden's accuracy was very low, and that's worrying and concerning. So you take that into mind with other stuff as well in the case, and if you want to apply it to a party goers, and still that situation with Jack and the time of death, lacking context, it's very unfortunate that if only we had more screenshots or so. I think there might have been a time where, because it's hard to remember everything, and I remember Tim Daniel referencing it as well, that a screenshot was finally released which showed Jack Newton saying other stuff or more in depth, and it was never shown before because it was gatekept, as some were claiming, by Justin Roy and others cropping it down so it didn't show it all. I can't remember what it was about personally, but it just came to my mind. So with everything what we've looked at, hopefully you found it interesting. Who knows what will happen next? Some more videos to come when possible. But if you want to hit the thumbs up and hit the like button, share the video, that'd be appreciated. Try and get the video out there, spread that awareness, keep the case alive, and see where it goes. My name's Wyatt Raff. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye and good night.